Hello students, this is Mrs. Thompson. This is not CD13 but C13, solving equations for y and x. So our standard is that I can solve linear equations involving all rational numbers and justify. So today we're going to go back to the two types of equations. One is what has two different kinds of variables. And we are going to be looking to solve one for one of our variables, such as x or y. Now, solving for y in a certain equation, when we look at that, that is because it would then make, as we are looking at this, it easier to graph. These equations are said to be in slope-intercept form, which we'll be learning in our next unit. So we're many times going to solve for y, so that we get an equation that'll look something like this, with a number times x plus another number. So where both of these two will be numbers that we will be looking at. But solving for y or x is going to be necessary in our future when we get to these solving linear equations as we look at those. So in this first equation, we're asked to solve for y. The key thing with solving for any variable, as we've learned in this unit, is you need to isolate that variable y. So in this case, we need to isolate y over 3, keeping in mind that this is really 1y over 3. So I have 5x plus 1y over 3 equals 2. And if I am isolating this y over 3, 1y over 3, how do I get rid of 5x? Well, it's a plus 5x, that's positive 5x. So I am going to be minusing 5x or subtracting 5x. Now I just want you to notice I did not line these up back here. And the key thing is because these are not like terms. So I now have my y, or 1y divided by 3 equals, I prefer to put my x term first, but I just want you to be aware that 2 minus 5x is going to be the same as I am solving this problem with y divided by 3 equals negative 5x plus 2. The key thing is you have to keep the negative with the 5 and the 2 was positive, so making sure you keep the right signs with it. So if I think about the opposite of dividing by 3, opposite of dividing by 3 is to finish that problem, and I want to multiply everything by 3. And I'm going to multiply every single term. Now I could use the distributive property over on this other side of the equation, but I prefer to just multiply each thing by 3. And again, it wouldn't matter which way you're writing this. And I usually, when I put this 3, what I'll see some students do is put 3 down by this 3. That doesn't work. It's 3 over 1. But over here we don't have fractions, so I can just say negative 5x times 3 and 2 times 3. When I am looking at this equation, 3 over 3 cancels, whereas if you write something like this and you put times 3, that doesn't work. Those don't really cancel. That would have been 9. So just be careful how you write this. So we get our solution, y equals 3 times 2 is 6, minus 5 times 3 is going to give us 15x. And again, if you wanted to write it putting your x term first over here, negative 15x plus 6. And both of these solutions are the same solution, just written a little differently. We're going to do some practice. Here you are asked to solve first for y and then for x. And then we're going to do some where you get to try them on your own. So again, here we're trying to isolate my y. Over here we're trying to isolate the x. If I'm isolating the y, this is a pretty simple equation, only one step. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. As I subtract 3x from both sides of my equation, as I do that, I am simply left with y equals 4 minus 3x. And again, the question can be answered is, or could I write it as y equals negative 3x plus 4? Now I'll tell you I prefer this method just because this is going to lead us into our next equation and having our equations what are called slope-intercept form. In this equation, as you take a look, we are going to be solving for x. That means I need to get rid of the y. So I'm going to subtract y on both sides. As I do that, I'm going to have 3x. So as I'm taking a look at that, I'm going to have 3x, and then as I do that, equals, I'm going to have 4 minus, and I like to put a coefficient with the y because it's understood that there is a 1 with that. So just keeping that with it, so I have 1y as I'm looking at this problem. So now I have 3 times x, and the opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide everything by 3. So my final solution is going to be x equals 4/3, and we're going to keep it just as that fractions, 4/3 minus 1/3 y. Now, I want you to notice down here in the solution, they put the whole thing over 3 because neither 4 nor 1 can be divided. We would also take this solution, 4/3 minus y over 3, and if you prefer to keep that coefficient, sometimes people like to say 1/3 y. So there's many different ways of writing that. Just make sure you're checking and understanding as you look in the back for your answer key. So here are some practice ones. The first ones are solving for y. The second ones are solving for x. I would like you to pause your computer and try each of these. Keep in mind that as you're doing the problems, when you solve for y, that means to isolate your y. So you're going to start with isolating the y. Down here, you're going to isolate the x. And this one is a little trickier because you actually have a negative 1x, and you got to really watch that negative sign. Here, we're going to isolate, again, the x. So pause your video and try this, and then you're going to see me working through it. As you look at this problem, we are going to subtract 3x from both sides. Once I've subtracted 3x, I get the equation 5y equals 7 minus 3x. To isolate the y and get 1y, I'm going to divide everything by 5. And again, you could keep the 1 fraction, or you can leave it as 7/5 minus 3/5 x. Could you also have y equals negative 3/5 x plus 7/5? Correct. Again, if we're solving this one for y, we are going to subtract 3. Once I do that, I have 1/4 times y equals negative 4x minus 3. The most common mistake that I'll have students do is I'll see them divide by 1/4. Keeping in mind that dividing by 1/4 somewhat works, but it's better to think of multiplying, and what can I multiply 1/4 times to get 1? Because my goal is to get 1y, is that I can multiply by its reciprocal, which is 4/1. That means over here, I can either use the distributive property and take 4 times everything in this parenthesis, or I can take each term times 4. So there's a couple different ways of doing that. In this case, 4 times negative 4x gives me a negative 16x. 4 times negative 3 gives me a negative 12 for my solution. So these are my 2 solutions as I am looking. And again, if you need to pause the video as you are looking to solve for x, I am going to work through those, but try it on your own first and then kind of unpause the video and watch and see if you can do it with us. I'm going to subtract 2y because I'm isolating the x. As I subtract 2y, I am going to end up with a negative 1x equals 8 minus 2y. And a lot of people will say at this point, oh, if we are solving for the x, and as I look at that, that it's already x, but it's not. It's a negative 1x. So now we need to divide each term by negative 1. So that my final answer is going to be x equals negative 8. Negative divided by negative will give me 2y. As we look at this last problem, you're going to start with using the distributive property. So 14x plus 3 equals, we're going to distribute the 4 so that we get 20 minus 4y. Now, when we subtract 3 from this side of our equal sign, we're going to subtract it from the 20 because those are my like terms. So I get 14x is equal to 17 minus 4y. And if I'm simplifying this or solving for 1x, I'm going to divide both sides by 14. Now this one I'm going to do individually because this last term could be simplified, and sometimes you're going to see a simplified answer. X equals, my fault, x equals, we're going to keep that as 17/14, and then instead of minus 4/14, 2 goes into both of those, so I might write it as 2y over over 7. And again, some people may not simplify this, and that would also be correct, but just kind of be careful as you are looking at those. Pause it if you need to. Go back and listen as we are describing how to solve these problems. So the last one that we are taking a look at is on your page 33 of your notes. It says, if you are ordering pizzas and sandwiches, how many can you buy for a total of $80? So we're trying to figure out how many sandwiches and how many pizzas. So the equation that they give us is 10x, because a pizza costs $10, plus 5y for 5 sandwiches. And here is our problem. X is pizza, y is sandwiches. How many sandwiches can you buy if you have 3 pizzas and if you have 6? So first thing it says to solve the equation for y, the number of sandwiches. So we're going to start with our equation, which was 10x plus 5y equals 80. And we are going to solve this to get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 10x from both sides. Again, I don't put it right below the 80 because they are not like terms. So I get 5y is equal to 80 minus 10x. But 5 was for the cost of the sandwiches, so I need to divide everything by 5. And y comes out to be equal to 80 divided by 5 is 16, minus 10 divided by 5 is 2x. So here is my equation that I'm going to be using, 16 minus 2x. And then they say, well, what if you buy 3 pizzas? So we're going to substitute in x equals 3. And then they ask, what if you buy 6 pizzas? So first, we're going to go with x equals 3. So you go to your equation, y equals 16 minus 2x. And you are going to replace the x with 3. So y equals 16 minus 2 times 3. 16 minus 6 would give us 10. So if we get 3 pizzas, how many sandwiches? We can get 10 sandwiches. Next, we're going to try the same problem, and this time, what if we get 6 pizzas? So this is for our 6 pizzas. Again, you're going to the same equation, y equals 16 minus 2x. But this time, we are taking 16 minus 2 times 6. So if we are taking a look at that, as we are solving, if we have x being 6, we are going to take 16 minus 12, which means y can equal 4. So when we go to answer the questions, the question says that I can buy 3 pizzas and 10 sandwiches. Or I can buy, if I buy 6 pizzas, I can then get 4 sandwiches. So as you are taking a look at that. Now your homework, I'm going to show you a couple questions in your homework as you are getting started. So you're going to notice that there's a 13A and a 13B. It says solve the equation, show your work. So when you are looking at these first ones, you're asked to solve for y. So keep in mind you're going to solve for y. And then when you get to the next page is when you are solving for x. And I'm not sure at this point when we are assigning the 13B, but these are great practice to make sure you are understanding the problems as you are going through. So here's some work solving for y. Hope it goes well. Go back to the video, rewatch it, and have a great day.